good afternoon, good night, good evening. I always say because the time zone around the world. Some persons may be watching us now, and you're in the night, right? Really, and at this time when I'm recording this podcast, it's only 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. ET here in Florida, Miramar, Florida, to be exact. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I am Dr. Canute White. You know, a lot of times we go through life and we need to think positive, not only as individuals, but as business leaders. And there are some experts who can assist us in dealing with positivity, creating positive changes within our lives. My guest today is going to be talking to us about that sort of positivity for organizations and individuals. And we're going to be talking about a concept that he calls sparks. Sort of a sparks concept. It speaks to changes, positive changes. But Rick, my guest, will tell you more about that and how we can create this sort of positivity, this sort of change in our life, in our mindset as we move away from the pandemic, which we gradually moving away from it and change our lives over time. And now we are gradually moving away from it. How do you create that positivity? How do you initiate that positive change that you'd want in your organization and in your life? I will now invite Rick to talk to me about that. Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Dr. White. Thank you very much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be
Nice.
here.
I'm going to pull you a bit, Rick, because we need to know who is Rick. Who is Rick? Let's talk about you first. Who are you, sir?
Well, thank you for asking first off, for wanting to know more about me. But I'm a very simple man. I'm a father of three beautiful daughters, and my wife, Tanya. We've been married for 26 years. I'm a family man. That's the biggest, most important thing in my life. And above that, I'm the founder of iSpark Change. And iSpark Change is an organization to empower others to spread positive change and elevate social impact around the world. And that's what I've been working on since 2020, when my life changed significantly, like it did for a lot of us. But at that time, I wrote a book that had been in my head for 20 years. And it was my first book. I'm working on a second one, but that was my first book. So I'm an author as well, and a coach. I coach others, work with individuals, help them to grow their business, and help them to add the impact component of purpose and passion to their work, to make a difference.
Yeah, I love that, Rick. I there's a question that I always ask my guests. If you have watched some of my episodes, you perhaps would know what the question that I'm gonna ask, as usually not on my guest minds. And Rick, childhood. Tell us about Rick at 7, Rick at 10, Rick at 12. Talk to us about that.
Well, the young Rick. Okay, so let's say the Rick at 7. He was still trying to get some attention, because I'm the youngest of 5. I had 4 older sisters. Now, I was the first boy. My parents decided that they would keep trying until they got a boy. So I was the first boy.
Oh, cool.
But I had my 4 older sisters, and I was just trying to see where I fit in, and being the youngest, trying to get attention from my family. My father worked a lot. My parents were disciplinarians, so
okay.
Education was a big thing, and faith was a big thing. And that's where I would be probably at 7 and even 10. I think I was just trying to make friends. I was kind of a chubby little kid, and I was, just wanted to have some friends and be accepted. I think I was kind of always looking for acceptance, as a lot of us do throughout life. We want to be part of the tribe. We want to be part of the society. And so, as I grew up as a young child, and then as a teenager, it really was about acceptance. But as I became a teenager and going into like high school and everything, I really started to shine as a leader.
Okay.
Well, in sports and in student government and in different capacities, that's where some of those kind of leadership qualities really started to come out. And I don't know if it was from being the youngest or it was just from some of the things that I had learned from my parents about leadership and about serving others, and our faith, which was an important part of my growing up. But that started playing a big role, and that played a big part in my development, kind of as a young man, in when I started to work in business, in different roles, to take on different leadership roles and to help train others and help develop them and make them better.
Right. So you're perhaps you have heard about the concept that the child is the father of the man, and it's basically your childhood sort of mold you into your adulthood, and it seems like if, as a child leader, right, you have become the sort of a leader you are now in as an adult. But I'd like to ask this question, Rick, about how did you almost kill your family? I heard that somewhere. Talk to us about that.
Yes, it's a crazy story, Dr. White, and it was about 21 years ago. So, and now currently I live in Texas, but at the time we were living in Southern California, where I'm from and my wife is from, and we were a young family. We had 2 daughters at the time. We now have 3, but we had 2 daughters that were very young. They were 1 and 4. And we had driven south from where we lived about 2.5 hours to go to a birthday party. And we were coming back from the party on a Sunday afternoon, much like today, Sunday afternoon. It was late in the afternoon. And we're coming back from a birthday party, and it started to rain really, really hard. And in Southern California, it doesn't rain like that typically, but it started to. I mean, maybe in Florida you're used to that, or in Texas we are, but in Southern California not much. But it started raining really hard, and there was a lot of cars that had pulled over because it was really tough to see when you were driving. And we thought about pulling over, but it was getting late and it was getting dark, and we didn't want it to, we thought if it got dark, it'd be worse. And we had to get home. It was Sunday, like I said, and the kids had school and we had work, and we were cautious, but I was probably a little cocky at that young age, because as I said, I was part of me being a leader in sports was being very competitive. And so I was, maybe a little cocky or arrogant. And so we continued on driving, and all of a sudden, so we were driving in the first lane, in the slow lane. And all of a sudden I don't see it, and I hit a large puddle. And we start hydroplaning, and I lose control, and we start spinning just in circles out of control. And we spin across 4 lanes to the left. And we're about to hit the center divider, and I'm trying to steer, and I'm braking, and I'm screaming, and my wife is screaming, and the kids are, they had been asleep, and then for some reason we don't hit the center divider, and we spin the other direction, and we go across 4 lanes the other way, and we go off the shoulder, and we go up a dirt embankment, and we hit a brick wall, and we flip over completely and land back on the wheels.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, crazy. And,
wow.
And the roof is smashed down to here, and the glass is all shattered, and the right side is all smashed, and the glass is shattered, and the car's filled with glass and dirt and every stuff everywhere. And I quickly check my children, and they're okay. They're crying, but they're not cut from the glass, or they seem to be okay. And my wife is okay. And we crawl out of my door, and this older couple had pulled over. They had witnessed the whole thing. And they pulled over, and the lady wrapped this big blanket around my wife, and my wife is sitting on the ground, just holding my daughters in the pouring rain. And the gentleman tells me, he says, "That's the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life." and he tells me that he thought we would have been killed, that
Yeah.
we were killed for sure because of what the car looked like. It was just so smashed. He thought we were, we were dead or very harmed, and
Yeah.
he had called 911, and the car was towed away, and we went and were checked out in the hospital, and everything was fine.
Good.
But
Yeah.
the next day, Dr. White, when I went to pick up our things, because the car was towed away, so I went to the impound place to pick up our things.
Yeah.
And the car is sitting on a tow truck outside, a flatbed tow truck. And I go into the office and I tell the attendant, I say, sir, I'm here to pick up my things from this black Grand Prix outside. And he looks me straight in the eye and he said, "That's not your car." And I said, "Yes, that's my car."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, whoever was driving that is dead." And it kind of threw me off guard by what he was saying. And I said, "No, that's my car. What do you mean dead?"
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, "No, I see hundreds of cars, and every time I can tell what happened to the driver by the look of the car.
Yeah.
And that's the car of someone that should have been killed." And I said, "Well, I'm not, and me and my family were fine." And I convinced him it's my car. But after him saying that, and the other gentleman who had told me, what they had said, I really felt like we were, some kind of miracle, like we were blessed that
Yeah.
we didn't have a scratch, and that
Yeah.
and I really felt that something special had happened, that we could have been killed and that we weren't.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear that. Hence, I'm here talking to you, and I'm really happy, right, that you guys are all right. I wanted to know what the story about almost killing your family, and it's really an amazing story. But how did that change your fate?
Oh my gosh, that had
Right.
an immense effect
Yeah.
on me and my faith and just me as an individual.
Yeah.
After the accident, I went through this intense period of self-reflection for a few months, because at first I thought, well, really, was it that bad? And then people kept telling me, and they'd see what the car looked like, and my mom was saying, "Oh, your guardian angel protected you for sure," and people saying it's a miracle. And as I prayed and reflected about it, I realized that that we had been given a gift.
Yeah.
And when I was reflecting, I wrote a list of things that how I wanted to change my life.
Yeah.
And these were ways that I wanted to live by. And I called it a to-do list for every day.
Yeah.
And it had things on there like being grateful and being present and treating my others with respect and cherishing every moment with my family.
Yeah.
And living as if any day could be the last day of your life.
Definitely. Yeah.
And that it was, as I said, I was a young man and we were still kind of figuring out being parents at that time, but that really shifted me to be more focused on my family and to be more focused on them and really showing God that I appreciated the gift that we had been given, that we were still alive.
Yeah, yeah. It's an amazing story, and again, I'm really happy that you and your family had well, not happy that you have experienced it, but happy that you have overcome the experience, and and really are here with us today, right? I'm happy for that. But Rick, what motivates you to write this 12 hours of heaven? Is that a part of the motivating factor, that accident?
Yes, absolutely, Dr. White. And because when I was going through that period of reflection, I would find myself just kind of daydreaming or thinking for long stretches of time, and I had to drive for work. I had a territory. I was in sales. I had to drive for work, so I had gotten another car, and I would be out, and sometimes I'd just sit in my car and like I said, reflect and think. And one day, my mother gave me this little angel pin to stick in my car, and I put it on the visor. And one day I'm sitting there staring at this little guardian angel pin. And all of a sudden, this idea for the story that would become my book hit me like that, like I had just watched it like a movie. And I thought, wow, this is a pretty special story. I should write this. And back then, 21 years ago, I started writing, and I wrote about a page only.
Okay.
And then I just didn't continue. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just went back to life and kind of forgot about it, really.
Yeah.
And then in the past few years, I had been thinking I really should write. I felt kind of this calling to write a book. I felt that it was coming time. And in 2019, my father, who was 96 at the time, he had, and we were very close, and he had a fall. He had a bad fall.
Right.
And he had to go in the hospital. And when that happened, I went to visit him, and I told him, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. And he was so happy, and he loved to read, and he was so happy, and he got so excited about it that he called the nurse to tell her. He pushed the button in the hospital to call the nurse to tell her that I was going to write a book, that his son was going to write a book. And so I thought, I really need to write this. And then he ended up passing away a couple months later because he couldn't recover from that fall.
Condolence.
And then the following year in 2020, when the pandemic hit and everybody goes into quarantine, and all of a sudden we find ourselves with a lot of time, I realized that time was another gift for me to use to write my book.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to write the book. And the book is a fictional story about an angel that comes down from heaven, and he helps 10 people with the most difficult challenges they have in their lives. And they're trapped in an elevator for 12 hours overnight, which is why the title is 12 Hours of Heaven. But the inspiration came from me feeling that, Angel had protected us in our accident, and he had helped us when we needed, help.
Yeah.
And that's where the motivation for the story came from. And that's where, why I decided to write it in 2020.
Yeah, it's a great. I love to read the book. I love to get the book. It seems like a very interesting book. All right. You're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White. Those of you listening on your favorite podcast platform, you should be also watching on YouTube channel Canute Media. Right, see the video version as soon as possible. Talking to Rick, and he's telling us a very wonderful story. But Rick, let me ask this: you have talked about the accident. You have talked about your book and what motivates you as it relates to the book. But your story is your story more than the accident? Is there more to your story?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Dr.
Tell us.
White, because when I started writing in April of 2020, I had never written a book, right? So I just started writing very systematically. I actually Googled some tips on writing a book, and it says, write every day and write consistently and set a goal every day, words, write for 2 hours or 1,000 words or something like that. So I set a goal of 500 to 1,000 words, 750, 1,000 words per day.
Okay.
And I started writing every day, every afternoon, just very, very methodically, like I said.
Yeah.
Well, as I started writing, after about a month of writing, I found myself very spiritually connected. And I felt I started having dreams and visions of creating a better future, and that I was supposed to do more than just write a book, that I felt I was being called to do more than write the book. And my writing flourished. My writing, I went from writing 750 words in a day to writing over 2,000 in a couple hours.
Ooh, right.
And I finished the book in under 3 months. And I realized, when I was having just so many ideas, and I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with all these ideas and write things down, and that's where the idea for I Spark Change was born,
Yeah.
because sparking change is a theme that's woven throughout my book. The idea of sparking change and making a difference, and that's where I felt called that I had to create more than the book. And so when I finished the book and we published it a few months later in October, right around that time, I created the organization I Spark Change.
Right.
And as I said earlier, the purpose of I Spark Change is to empower others to spread positive change and elevate social impact to make the world a better place, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's where I decided to devote my time and my life to doing exactly those things.
Yeah.
And the book was just the beginning. The book was just kind of the kickstart for getting getting I Spark Change. And now since the end of 2020, that's what I've been working on growing our community with I Spark Change, on social media and online, and doing what we can to spread positive change and to impact others and show others how they can do it as well.
Yeah. Rick, a lot of us had gone through many things, right? That's how the world is, right? And we learn from our mistakes. We learn from our experience. We learn from everything that goes on around us. If we choose to do that, because some of us still cannot learn, right? But I'd like to find out what are some of the lessons that you have learned from your experience along the way.
Oh, wow. That's an awesome question, Dr. White. Thank you for asking that, because it really starts with some of the lessons that I learned. I'd say in that 20 years between the time when I had the idea for the book and the time when I wrote the book. And I think that's probably why I didn't finish writing it all those years ago, is because I wasn't ready. I hadn't learned all those lessons. I hadn't gone through life and grown as an individual and grown in my understanding of myself and quote unquote wisdom that you get when you go through life and you raise a family and you have all these different experiences. And in my book, the subtitle is called Lessons for a Better World.
Okay.
And so the 10 characters, they are all helped with a different challenge, and in being helped with a challenge, they learn some of the lessons that I had learned along the way. Yeah. And some of them are similar from that original to-do list that I had wrote myself, like practicing gratitude or being present. But then there was other lessons that had been really foundational for me, like having faith or expanding my relationship with God, or to serve others, because and in the past few years, that's what's really grown for me is, I've created my purpose of loving and giving and serving others, because I think for years I had been pushed towards that, but maybe I resisted it, or maybe I didn't fully understand it. And that's where it all crystallized after the writing of my book and creating of I Spark Changes, that's my purpose. That's what I'm supposed to be doing and focused on.
Yeah. Rick, I Spark Change seems like a good thing, and we're going to talk more about it. But our adversities are not for us. I often say that it's for us to help someone else. It's like, train the trainer. So we were trained through our adversities to help someone else to come through, and that's critical for us as we have experience. But the next thing, the legacy that you leave, the legacy that I leave, I write as well, and it's important that you write about what you have learned, in order to help someone else. Leave that as a legacy for the next 50 years, 100 years. When you and I are gone, the next 150 years, someone will pick up their book and say, oh, I this is what was learned, and therefore I can learn. So I appreciate you doing that. We have to leave a legacy to change. You talk about changing the world, right? And what impact your writing will have and society eventually. That's very important. But iSpark, right? What is that all about? This iSpark change. Talk to me about that. Talk to us about that.
Yes, and just real quick, Dr. White, before I do,
Okay, go ahead.
I will say that I agree completely about what you were saying about legacy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because just yesterday I was writing a blog about that, about creating your legacy, because I feel that's so important. I feel that it's our duty. It's our duty as human beings and as leaders and
Yeah.
and people that to improve things for others and to leave the world better than we found it. And
Yeah.
and like you said, if it's someone that you impact 100 years or 150 years or 5 years or tomorrow, that you impact those people, just one person, that it makes a difference in their lives. And that leads directly to talking about the spark. Okay, so as I said, that the idea for sparking change is an idea that came to me for my book and is used in the book. And it's because, like, a fire starts with a spark, right?
Yeah.
And something small, the spark is just that little something that can create something much bigger and much larger. And what I call spark moments are those tiny little acts in your life, those tiny moments in life where it could be something that someone tells you. It could be something that you read in a book. It could be something that you learn or that you teach someone else. And those tiny spark moments can have a huge ripple effect that go far beyond that initial act. So it's just like if you were to throw a pebble in a calm lake, that the ripples will continue out farther than you can see. And as I've started on this path with iSpark Change and been talking to people from all over the world for the past, almost 2 years, I've realized that everyone's life is filled with these sparks, with these moments that, for example, that you and I talking on your podcast right now, that there could be someone that hears something that one of us say, they may hear what you said about legacy and think, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I need to start focusing on my legacy and what impact I'm going to have for others. And that's a spark moment, that one little thing that, we're just having a conversation, but that one thing goes on and affects someone's life in a much bigger way. And as I've spoken to people, as I was saying, and heard story after story of these life-changing sparks, these life-changing impacts that have literally changed the trajectory, of someone's life, just one word or one sentence or one action, and it completely changed someone's life in a totally different direction. And that's essentially what happened for me, whether it was the accident or whether it was 2020 where I decided to write my book. I mean, those small moments have a big impact that makes a big difference. And that's the whole thing with Spark, with iSpark Change.
Right. So it's just a spark, right? That's important. But I saw something. I've been looking at your website, and I saw social impact era. I'm not sure how that connects to iSpark Change, but you were saying on the website that these eras basically are everyday individuals like you and I, and we make a difference in the world, whether through actions or impact on their impact on others. Explain that to the audience.
Yes, and I think it's important for people to understand that any of us can be a social impact hero. Any of us can make a difference in the world. And that's why I came up with that term, social impact hero, because social impact in itself has a broad definition, whether it's cleaning the environment or helping others, or it's just impacting society is the way that I look at it, a much simpler definition. And the way I see it is that, as I said, those actions, any of us can do an action that's going to have an impact on another person, whether it's one person or 10 or
Right.
100 or a million.
Mhm.
And it could be as simple as smiling at someone and changing the
Yeah.
course of their day. And so we all can be social impact heroes. Now, the people that are highlighted on the website or on our podcast as a social impact hero,
Right.
these are people that they are kind of going above and beyond. They are doing work to leave that legacy that you talked about. They're
Yeah.
people that are really making an impact and trying to help more people than just, one person at a time. They're trying to help the masses. And that's why we call them a, impact hero, because they're reaching many lives and impacting lots of different people in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so it's two components. It's one that yes, any of us can be a social impact hero. We can all impact others. We just have to make that choice, to have our actions be positive as opposed to negative, because it can be the other way too. You can impact someone in a negative way.
Okay. Yeah.
That's number one. And then number two, it is that for a long time, I thought that I was just one person. And I thought, what difference can I make? And I think that's why I didn't do a lot of this work years ago, is because I thought, I'm just one person. How can I make a difference in the world? How can I change the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah.
And what I realized, and maybe you already know this kind of secret, if you will, Dr. White, is
Uh-huh.
that, as I said, anyone can change the world, because my actions can have an effect on others.
Mhm.
And in doing so, that changes the world. Even if you change one person, that changes the world
Yeah.
in some way. And that's why it's not just spark change, but it's I spark change, because it
Yeah.
has to start with the individual. It has to start with all of us, you, me, each person. So
Right.
as each of us go out there, we can choose to spark change every day and to
Mhm.
make the world a better place every day.
Yeah. And I well, I'm not a professor now in terms of teaching, but I used to teach a lot. I teach at the university level and so on, as a professor. And I know that in doing that, I change the world perhaps indirectly, because those students that I had gone out there and make a positive, hopefully positive, yeah, impact, impact on society. And so that spark you talk about in the classroom, spreads across, through those students. It's very understandable what you're trying to do, right? In
Mm-hmm.
I Spark Change. But is it an organization?
Yes, it's an organization. It's not a charity or a nonprofit organization, because when I started it, I considered starting it as a nonprofit organization, and I spoke to some friends that run nonprofit
Yeah.
organizations, and they advised me against it, because they said I would have limitations in terms of growth and everything. And the second part of that is, and now, not that we make a bunch of profit or anything, because we
Right.
don't, but
Yeah.
but in terms of the next phase for iSpark Change is, so right now we're growing the community. We're growing the community on social media. We're growing the community online, and in our work with different businesses or individuals, we spotlight them. We have a podcast and everything, just to
Right.
grow the community, grow the
Mhm.
awareness.
Mhm.
The eventual goal for iSpark Change is to evolve it into a larger platform, a larger hub, social media type platform, where it's connecting all these different individuals, these organizations, these groups, these nonprofits, these people like you that
Mhm.
are impacting the world positively, but have
Yeah.
them all in one place where they can support one another, where they can find one another. Because right now they're all spread out across the globe. You can start doing a Google search and find people, but to have one central place where you can search and put criteria
Right.
and keywords and everything, that doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
that's what we want to evolve iSpark Change into in the next 5
I
years.
like it. I really love it. How can others? You and I are spreading, creating sparks here, creating sparks there, and so on. But how can the person listening to us right now, that man in his living room, trying to say, what can I do? What type of sparks can I start, and so on. So how can the ordinary person spread some sparks here, right?
Yeah,
Spread some
yes.
positive change.
I love the question. I love the question because people ask me that every day. People
Okay.
ask me that every day. How can they spread positive change? It's really just, it's a couple different ways. The first is to realize that their actions make a difference. So it's having that awareness that all of their actions make a difference. So when they leave their house and they're walking down the street or they're driving to work, that those actions make a difference, whether they smile at someone on the street or they let another car in front of them in traffic. Like
Right.
all those little things make a difference. They
Yeah.
might help someone get to work on time, or all those little things. It's about having the awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing, it's seeking those opportunities throughout your day
Yeah.
to impact someone in a positive way. Whether you tell a coworker that you say, "Oh, I really like the way you look today," or "Your hair looks nice," or you tell someone, you ask them about their weekend, or really ask them how they're doing, and really see what they're feeling, and really get in touch with someone on a deeper emotional level. But on iSparkChange.com, if people join iSparkChange, join the community, they get a free download of 25 creative ways to spread positive change, transformational things that'll help spread positive change. And there's all sorts of ideas on there. It's some of the things I just mentioned. It can be reaching out to someone that you haven't spoken to in a long time. It can be leaving a note on for someone to find, at the gas pump. I mean, there's all sorts of
Yeah.
things that you can
Cool.
do. But
Yeah. So I sparkschange.com. If you go there, audience, you will find some ways how you can start this change. So go to isparkschange.com, right? That link will also be in the description of this podcast episode. You will see it there. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White, talking to Rick about how you can change, or others, you guys who are watching, listening, can change the world, in a positive way, can change your community in a positive way, your family in a positive way. It's all familial as well, right? Not only as it relates to
yes.
outside, you start from the inside. But it's critical. How can people be more positive though? Because you have to be positive to spread positivity. Do you think, Rick?
Yes, absolutely. And there's, for some people it doesn't come easy. And even when the pandemic started, and I found myself, I'm a very positive
Right,
individual. I'm a very optimistic individual,
right.
but I found myself getting kind of negative when the pandemic started and we were in
Yeah,
quarantine and lockdown, and I found myself getting anxious and depressed and worried about the future. And I was quickly able to shift my mindset by starting to write and everything, and that helped me. But for a lot of people, it's really difficult. It's challenging. They're in more of kind of a negative mentality. And one thing that I recommend is a psychology tactic called positive reframing, where
yeah,
you take any situation and you find the silver lining. You find something positive out of that situation. So, for example, someone can get laid off at work,
right.
and that would seem horrible to most people, right? You lose your job and you're laid off, and then in that situation you can say, okay, well, now I have the opportunity to find a better job. Right
Yeah.
now I have the opportunity to do something that I enjoy better. And it's taking any situation and looking for that positive aspect in it. And it can take work depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But you can find it in any situation. I promise you, if you take the time to
Yeah.
pause and write it down and look for it, you'll find it.
So think positive to spread positivity. Because
Yes.
if you think negative, you're going to spread negativity, right? That's important. But Rick, a lot of times we somewhat not seen. Let me say it like this: there are times when we are with individuals and we're not able to read the mood of those individuals to see that something is happening, something is wrong, to spread that sort of a spark sparks, as we want to call it, to initiate that change, you know, to say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Because we're not reading the moods well. Are you seeing that sometimes?
Yes, and that's where I think, and it's interesting because I was asked to contribute to this article about how you should ask the question, how are you, and answer the question, how are you, recently. And
Right.
you know, my thoughts on that were to get away from that simple question that can be answered in a yes no fashion, and to ask more of the open-ended type questions, to say,
Right.
what are you feeling today?
Okay.
And what about this, someone, oh, I feel great. Oh, well, what's great about your day? Tell me about the great things that have
Yeah.
happened today. Or I feel fine. Oh, well, tell me why it's not, why it's only fine, why it's not great or awesome. And just to really get in touch with the feelings, with the feelings of what someone is experiencing, and get
Mhm.
out of those kind of programmed responses, those pre-programmed responses that we all
Yeah.
have, when people ask, but really start asking about the feelings, and ask more questions, seek to get in touch with that person on a deeper level, because that helps to
Yeah.
build those relationships, and you'll find you'll get so much more value out of the conversation and the relationship, and you'll both feel better.
Yeah. That's interesting though, that you said that, because usually, not only in Jamaica, where I'm from, but usually when somebody asks, "Are you okay? Or are you?" I'm good, but deep inside, Rick, that person might not be good, but program response, yeah, I'm good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. Ask open-ended question to sort of bring bring out the true feeling, or some aspect of the feeling that would suggest that there's something wrong, and perhaps you can create that sort of positivity for that person.
Yeah, and the deeper, Dr. White, the deeper these conversations, the more you have these conversations, the
Yeah,
more you'll be in touch with those individuals that you're close to, and the more you'll know that something is off.
yeah,
Even if they say I'm good,
yeah,
and it's a friend, you'll know, well, are you really good? Because I don't think you're
yeah,
being honest with
yeah,
me and yourself right now.
yeah.
And if you start having those open dialogues, then that's how people feel safe, and then they'll want to share deeper, on a
Yeah.
deeper level.
Definitely. I love my audience to hear that, and to see if we can create this sort of change in people's life. The sparks, as we would like to call it. And I love that. I love that I spark change thing. It's amazing. But tell me, what habits help you to live an amazing life?
Oh, this is a great question, because I'm a big fan of habits. I've
Yeah.
in That's one of the ways that I work with people in my coaching, is on creating habits, because we do so many things as human beings by habit.
Yeah.
If we had to think about everything we do, then our brains just couldn't handle the
Yeah.
capacity. So we have to, we eat, we brush our teeth, we drive, we
Yeah.
do all these things just
Right.
habitually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, I've created many habits to help me live an amazing life. It starts with, in the morning, I wake up, I read scripture, I
Mhm.
journal gratitude, so different things that I'm grateful for, and I'll read some gratitude, and I'll journal different things that I'm grateful for, and spend some more time in reading and reflecting and meditating. The meditation is something that I've only been doing. I've always wanted to do it, and
Yeah.
always thought it was difficult for me. And then I started it about 5 months ago, and I love it.
Yeah.
But those other habits, the gratitude is a great one. I begin my day scripture and gratitude. I end my day with
Mhm.
scripture
Mhm.
and gratitude. And and there's so many studies on the benefits of gratitude and positivity and optimism, that show that you can literally rewire your brain and
Yeah.
change your thinking by practicing gratitude. So that's what I do. That's the biggest one. The biggest
Yeah.
one, would be to start and end the day. And then the other one would be to really practice what I preach. So all the things that we've
Yeah.
been discussing
Mhm.
is on a daily basis. I talk to lots of people on Zoom, and there's people that I coach and people that interact, that I really ask them deep questions. I want to know. I want to know about them. I want to
Right.
know who they are and what they have going on,
Mm-hmm.
and get a deeper understanding of what they're feeling. Because I think those connections
Yeah.
um, help us to become closer, and that closeness helps to spread a positive change as well.
Yeah. Do you think, Doric, we talk about habits and so on, but do you think that it's easier to form negative habits than positive ones? And how would you suggest to the audience, to form positive, positive habits instead of negative habits?
Yes, to answer your first question, I I don't necessarily think it's easier to create one versus the other. I
Okay.
think for a lot of people it's more convenient.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe it's a little lazier to create the
Yeah.
negative ones,
Right.
but look at it this way. Okay, so for example, if you want to eat better, eat
Okay.
cleaner, healthier food.
Right.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
you can say, oh, well, it's easier to just go through a drive-through and get fast food than to cook at
Right.
home, right?
Right.
At
Right.
first glance, that seems easier, correct?
Yeah.
However, what's easy now is going to be very much more difficult later,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if you have health issues, or you
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
medical bills, or you become overweight, and and then from that you have issues with your knees or your back, or there's all, so you can take
Yeah.
the easy now or the easy later. So it's for me, like, all we cook at home, we do our meal prepping, we prepare all that, so that'd be another habit to
Right.
have some easy. So
Yeah.
we do all that, and exercise and everything, and I'm envisioning that later, that I'll live like my father, that I'll live a long happy life, because I've chosen the habits, what others might say, are not as easy habits. So when it comes to creating habits, one thing that I coach people on is, if they ever have something that they consider a bad habit and they want
Right.
to break it,
Uh-huh.
is to replace it with a new, better habit, a new,
Mm.
upgraded habit. Okay,
Right.
so for example, let's say someone, smokes.
Okay.
Okay, and
Uh-huh.
I've never been a smoker, but let's say someone
Right.
smokes. They can exchange the habit of smoking. They can exchange it with doing deep breathing exercises for 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
kind of meditating, and doing that deep breathing in and out for 5 minutes, because they're doing the same type of breathing. So
Right.
they've exchanged the bad habit for the good habit. Or if someone is eating, too many potato chips, then, and they like the crunchiness, then change it for eating carrot sticks or celery
Mm-hmm.
sticks or something.
Mm-hmm.
You've swapped one for the other.
Yeah.
um, and that's a good way of, you still kind of have the habit. Let's say you like, oh, I like chewing on something when I'm watching TV. Well, you're doing that, but you've just changed
Yeah.
what
Change
you're
what
chewing
you're doing.
on.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And yes, bad habits, good habits, right? So that's the concept. But I'd like to take you up on something here. I saw this somewhere. 78% of consumers believe it's important for businesses to stand up for important social justice issues. But with that statistic, and another one, 70% of consumers believe that businesses have an obligation to take actions to improve issues that may not be relevant to their everyday operations. And yes, I understand that it basically speak to organizations going out there, and corporate citizenship, yeah, corporate
Hmm.
citizenship, sort of thing. But my thing is that many people out there are suffering, Rick, in the United States, in Jamaica, elsewhere around the world, and yet still businesses, companies are not reaching out to them, right? A lot of businesses, I suspect, do not have foundations, right,
Hmm.
to assist some of these people. So what's going on there? Are businesses becoming selfish? Most businesses becoming selfish, and not reaching out in terms of being good corporate citizens?
I think it has been that way, Dr. White, and I
Yeah,
think it's finally shifting. So as I said, social impact has been growing, and the definition has evolved over the past few years, especially since 2015. And and so businesses have been shifting to be more aware, to do more to help communities, to help out in the world, and support, different countries, and people that are less fortunate or struggling.
yeah,
And and it is shifting a lot, and it's been accelerated by the pandemic.
yeah.
So the social impact and this awareness of, where people feel like the stat, the quote you gave there, that
Right.
consumers feel that businesses have that obligation. Businesses used to fight that, because you go back 20 years or even 10 years, businesses would be about profits first.
Mhm.
Profits, profits, profits. That's, stock and shareholders and everything. And now it's really shifting. And I think it's going to continue to shift over the next 5 to 10 years, to where businesses are now, the ones that are having the most success are
Yeah.
the ones that are focused on purpose and people, and then profits are last. Because when you have a purpose and you focus on your people and growing your people, the profits come naturally. And that's what I teach businesses that I work with. And that's what I
Right.
teach, is that you have to grow your people. You have to have a purpose and a legacy in what you're doing.
Hmm.
And if you do that, and you do it that from a place of genuineness, and from, your heart, then with that, that's going to resonate with people, like the stat says, and
Yeah.
your business will grow. And
Hmm.
so it's not, we're not there yet. It is going to take time. You're right. There are still plenty that are focused on profits, but you see big, large organizations like Nike or Pepsi Cola, or that they are shifting, and they have whole divisions focused on purpose and foundations and everything, like you were saying.
Okay. What's your contact? Can you tell us what your contact information is?
Absolutely. The best place to reach out to us and stay in touch with iSpark Change is to go to the website, which is the letter I, sparkchange.com. They can join the community there. They can send us a message. And then on any social media platform, we have a very active Instagram. We're iSpark Change on Instagram. If people, if they email me, if they go to, if they email info@isparkchange.com, or they message me on iSparkChange on Instagram, I respond to every message. So
Cool.
they will hear back from me. I promise they will get a message back
Right.
from me.
And in the description of this podcast episode, you will see some of the social media link to iSpark Change, and you can contact Rick. It's very important. Rick, it's a very interesting discussion that, that we have had. I really thank you for coming on to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I enjoy talking to you, Rick.
Oh, likewise, Dr. White. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and excellent questions and dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, Rick. So that was Rick. Ice Park change is a very important concept. I love it, and you will love it too. So visit the iceparkchange.com and have a conversation with Rick now, right? Make an appointment, send him an email, and it's all about change, right? It's all about change in your life, in my life, the people around you, and your family life, organizational life. So it was nice to have you watching, have you listening, and thank you very much for doing that.